I'm Allison Markin. Oh, hello. I'll do that again. I'm Allison Markin Powell, former co-chair of PEN America's Translation Committee. Welcome to the third and final event in the 2021 series of bilingual readings brought to you by the PEN Translation Committee as we celebrate Women in Translation Month. The first two events were hosted on the PEN America website, and recordings will soon be available there as well. Today's event is also being recorded and hosted by PEN America with Rachel Roseman on this Zoom. Many thanks to our hosts. I'd also like to thank the four co-organizers of this year's events, Nancy Naomi Carlson, Sharon Dolan, Peter Florchik, and Jenna Tang. And thanks, of course, to our panelists, the authors and translators who will be reading today, and to everyone watching. Women in Translation Month is an initiative that was started in 2014 by the blogger Meytal Radzinski to address gender disparity in the field of translation. Women in Translation Month aims to highlight women and non-binary authors and translators whose recognition and representation in literary publishing is essential to freedom of expression. The last 18 months have been devastating across the world, from the COVID-19 pandemic to ongoing police violence to climate catastrophes. Forces of nationalism, greed, and bigotry are at work trying to divide us and make us distrust each other. Reading translations in this context is more important than ever because translation allows us to connect across borders and language barriers and to consider perspectives we might not otherwise have access to. A virtual platform allows us to reach more people around the world, as well as to bring more voices to your device's speakers from around the globe in real time. I will now introduce the moderator of today's event, Nancy Naomi Carlson, who is twice a National Endowment for the Arts Literature Translation Grant recipient. She has published 12 titles, 8 of which are translations. An Infusion of Violets, published in 2019 by Seagull Books, was called New and Noteworthy by the New York Times. Her translation of Carl Toraboly's Cargo Hold of Stars, Coolitude, was published in February, also by Seagull.
Thank you, Allison, for that introduction and for agreeing to be our introducer to this event. This three-of-a-kind event, because this is the third in a series of 3 readings to celebrate Women in Translation Month. I'm very excited that we're going to have 5 pairs of readers from all around the globe. So we have authors coming from Argentina, from Cameroon, the Czech Republic, Germany, and the winner goes to Japan, where it is 3 a.m. in the morning. The reading will be followed by a short Q&A if there's time. So as questions come up, please feel free to put them in the Q&A or the chat so that we can ask them at the end. So our first pair of readers will be translator Denise Cripper and author Adriana Riva. Denise Cripper is a literary translator and a translation scholar. She is also the translation editor at Latin American Literature Today and a founding member of the Third Coast Translators Collective in Chicago. Adriana Riva has an extensive career as a journalist. She is the author of the short story collection Angst, Tenemos las Máquinas, 2017, and the illustrated biography of Maria Elena Walsh, Entre las hojas que cantan, Diente de León, 2018. La Sal, Odelia Editoras, 2019 is her first novel. Welcome, Denise and Adriana.
Hey, thank you so much, Nancy, for that introduction. We're very happy to be here with all of you and to be sharing Adriana's novel, La Sal. And La Sal was published in 2019 by Odelia Editoras, which is a newish Argentine publisher that's run and was created by women, which I think it's very important to sort of highlight in the context of Women in Translation Month. And among other things, La Sal tells the story of a complicated relationship between Emma, the protagonist, and her mother. And as a child, Emma fell from the roof of her grandparents' summer house, and her mother watched her fall and did nothing to save her. So the excerpt we're reading from today belongs to the opening section of the novel, when Emma wakes up at the hospital after the accident. And first we'll hear from Adriana a little bit to get a taste for the Spanish, and then I'll read from my translation. And I should mention that the translation is still in progress and looking for a good home. So interested editors should let me know. Adriana?
Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, Nancy and Denise. I'm gonna read a short fragment from the novel. Cuando volví a abrir los ojos, papá me agarraba la mano. Supe sin mirarlo que era él, porque reconocí sus dedos callosos y peludos. Tenía las manos de un salvaje. Emma, tenés que ser una estatua. Por cada minuto que no te muevas, te doy un austral, me murmuró al oído. Quieta, quieta, dijo, como si le hablara a una mascota. Cuando se aseguró de que había entendido el mensaje, me explicó que me había aplastado 3 vértebras dorsales. La 3 debajo de los omóplatos, la 6 un poco más abajo, y la 11, ahí donde se iba a tener tetas algún día. ¿Qué es dorsal? Quise saber.
When I came to again, my dad was holding my hand. I knew it was him before I even opened my eyes because I recognized his callous and hairy fingers. He had the hands of a beast. Emma, I need you to be still as a statue. I'll give you a quarter for every minute you don't move, he whispered in my ear. Stay put. Stay, stay, he said as if speaking to a pet. Once he was sure I had understood, he explained that I had crushed 3 dorsal vertebrae. The 3rd under my shoulder blades, the 6th a little bit below that, and the 11th right where I had pressed one someday. What is dorsal? I wanted to know. Dad found a piece of paper somewhere in the room and drew a bunch of horizontal lines, one under the next in a column. Those lines were the vertebrae that made up the spine, he explained, the structure holding my skeleton. 3 were damaged. He highlighted them to let me know that they were broken. He then drew a long vertical line on top of those horizontal ones and said that was my spine. He smeared little lines around it to signify that it was swollen. By the time he was finished drawing, all I saw were menacing hieroglyphics, and I felt even more lost than before. As he spoke, I glanced my eyes around the room, moving them from one corner to the other like a cuckoo clock, trying to make sense of my new reality. The pain had faded along with my clarity. I felt blurry. At times, I disassociated and saw myself from impossible angles. Years later, I learned I was given IV morphine. And that's why you can't move, Emma, not even a little bit, not until this line in the center gets better, Dad said, pointing to the spine with the pen. Before leaving, he kissed me on the forehead and gave me a pinch on my chin. Deciphering the meaning of dorsal was my one obsession during those first days of convalescence. Little by little, I came to learn that and a few more things through half-heard whispers, the hoarse voice of doctors responding to the tense voice of my mother somewhere in the room. Because of this constant whispering in my nightmares, I swapped witches and ghosts for cripples and amputees, uncertain of the kind of monster I was up against. The orthopedic surgeon checked in every afternoon, poking my feet and legs. He smiled every time I said, "It hurts, it hurts." I named him the Tin Man. He never offered me a lollipop or a kind word, but I later found out he traveled all around the country telling my story at conferences and collecting enough diplomas to plaster the walls of his office. My accident had been labeled exceptional. It was a miracle I wasn't paralyzed. The first 2 nights I spent in the hospital, Mom stayed with me, sleeping on a chair I couldn't see because I couldn't move my neck. I know there was also a window somewhere because nurses open it daily to air out the room, although they couldn't really get rid of the smell of iodine and lethargy stuck in my mouth. My vision was limited to the moon-like white ceiling where water stains turned into mice, birds' beaks, and mouthless faces. These were my imaginary friends during my hospitalization. On the 3rd night, when she was told again that it was impossible to provide an extra bed for overnight stays, Mom went home to sleep and instead sent Juvencia, a Paraguayan maid who had started working for us 3 weeks before. It was she who endured sleepless nights on a chair without armrest while I was in the hospital. Her only comfort was a pillow the night nurses smuggled in for her, which she had to secretly return every morning. Juvencia was stocky with dark skin and frizzy hair. Her brown eyes were the size of the marbles my cousins kept in a jar. I don't know what kind of clothes she wore because I only ever saw her in the blue uniform with polka dots that fit her tightly around her hips. Whenever someone entered the room, she hurried to put on her sandals. The rest of the time, she preferred being barefoot. She spoke to me in Guarani with a sweet smile, like a guava fruit. Chemitacunia, she'd say, my girl, my girl. That's what she called me from day one. Every morning, she washed me for hours with a damp cloth that now and then she twirled with her chubby arms. All the while, she whistled a calming mantra. But I couldn't surrender to the ritual. Her touch in between my legs, my thighs, my armpits made me uncomfortable. I wasn't used to physical contact. Mom had never hugged me. Dad wouldn't even put his arm around me for a picture. We were like a family of bowling pins. I put up with the ceremony for 2 weeks until I finally asked my mom to please tell Juvencia not to take so long cleaning me. She blushed. I specifically asked her to do it like that so the morning would go faster. I thought you'd like that. Well, I don't like it. Just ask her for a quick wash, please, I begged her. From then on, the bath took 10 minutes. Mom and Dad had decided against putting me through surgery. They were suspicious of shortcuts, so my recovery took the longest road, casting and waiting. The former happened 3 weeks after my admission into the hospital, when the doctors burst into my room, waving an X-ray and proclaiming loudly, the swelling went down. To put the cast on, they took me on a stretcher to another room where they hung me vertically from a harness while a crowd of white coats inspected me. I felt the disassociation of the first days again. It was as if I was seeing myself from the opposite corner of the room. What I saw was a life-size puppet being covered in bandages and plaster. I felt high, happy. The cast meant that I was going to be able to leave the hospital in a few days. But when they took me back to my room, I first saw my reflection not in a mirror, but in my mother's eyes. She was crying in horror. She had to cover her mouth with her hand to hide the tremor in her lips. She hadn't understood the armor would cover me from top to bottom, including my head. Only my face and arms were bare. I was a mummy in a sleeveless shirt. Thank you. That concludes the reading.
Thank you so much, Denise and Adriana. Our second pair of readers will be translator Takako Lento and author Mari Kashuagi. Takako Lento has published 10 books of English translations of Japanese poetry, including a co-translation of collected haiku of Yosa Busan with W.S. Merwin, finalist for the Penn Translation Award. Born and educated in Japan, she holds an MFA in poetry and translation from the Iowa Writers Workshop and lives in Wilmington, Delaware. Mari Kashuagi is a Japanese poet and art curator. She received the Gendaishi Techo New Poet Award in 1995. She has been invited to read at the Struga Poetry Evenings, Macedonia, Interlesa, Germany, and the Princeton Festival, USA. She has published 3 books of poetry, and she lives in Chiba, Japan. Welcome, Takako and Mari.
Thank you, Nancy. We are delighted to be here today. We are going to read Mari's most recent book, Cho, Butterfly, published in Tokyo in 2020, as a set of the original in Japanese and its English translations in a box. This book of very short poems tells the story of Butterfly, a life form in time and space. She emerges into the expectant spring air, flutters throughout in sync with seasonal and natural cycles. She is spectacular and mysterious, strong yet vulnerable, mortal yet eternal. Mari.
Hello everyone. I am so pleased to read my poems from my most recent book, Butterfly. We will read selections from the first 12 chapters, take a break, and then read from the last chapter 13. Cho,
Butterfly.
まだいない蝶たちを春が抱えている。
Spring cradles butterflies not yet here.
世界を柔らかく振りほどいて生まれてくる蝶。
Softly shaking off the universe, emerges a butterfly.
その朝、蝶ではないものへ静かに蝶を手渡してゆく羽化。
That morning, butterfly is quietly handed over to what is not a butterfly. Emergence.
空の中に蝶の賢さ。
In the air, butterfly, a wondrous wisdom.
聞こえることと聞こえないことの間を壊してゆく蝶。
Butterfly moves on, collapsing the space between hearing and not hearing.
蝶は時間の先に咲きこぼれている時間。
Butterfly is time lavishly blooming on the edge of time.
知るということを詰めないほどに軽い蝶。
Butterfly so airy, unable to bear the burden of knowing.
蝶が言ってしまった。蝶の形の時間だけを残して。
Butterfly is gone, leaving behind only time shaped like a butterfly.
蝶、言ってしまうことを包んだ体。
Butterfly, that she'll be gone is sealed in her being.
雨が蝶を聞く。
Rain listens for a butterfly.
蝶に見入る月光。
Butterfly captivates moonlight.
蝶の行方を慕う雨。
Rain longingly trails behind butterfly.
蝶が蝶へ舞うと林が生まれる。
When butterfly flutters to a butterfly, trees emerge.
深い谷を越えながら蝶は自分を谷ではないかと思う。
Flying across a deep valley, Butterfly comes to wonder if she is the valley.
虹が泳ぐ。蝶がここにいたことを。
Rainbow shimmers, a memory of butterfly having been here.
空が虹に生まれ変わるという蝶。
Sky's reincarnation as a rainbow. Butterfly.
Well, chapter 13 is titled No More. We would like to dedicate our reading of this selection to all who are no longer with us. いない。
No more.
見えないもののための見えない橋である蝶。
Butterfly is an invisible bridge for the invisible.
成長といつも一緒にいる見えない幼鳥たち。私もなりたかった。いつかなるの。
The invisible stillborn butterflies always stay with butterfly. I too wanted to live someday, sometime. I'll surely make it.
命では追うことのできない蝶。
The living cannot go all the way with butterfly.
蝶々いないに羽をつけて。
Butterflies donning wings upon being no more.
蝶たちが川を渡っていく。川が桃色に染まるその時間に。今日眠りにつけなかった蝶たちだけの大切な川を渡っていく。
Butterflies are crossing the river at the moment when it wears peach. They cross the fateful river, open only to butterflies who could not attain sleep today.
いない時にも蝶の動きは世界のどこかにしまわれている。
Even while she's not here, butterfly's kinetic energy is tucked away somewhere in the universe.
蝶であることの外にそっと開く蝶。
Butterfly silently opens outside of being a butterfly.
蝶が舞ういないの世界がそよそよ匂う。
Butterfly dances. The universe of being no more sways in soothing scent.
空中はいつも奏でられている。いない方の蝶のために。
The open air is always being strummed to remember butterfly who is no more.
まだいない春を蝶たちは抱きしめている。
Butterflies are lovingly hugging spring not yet here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mari and Takako. Our next pair of readers will be translator Karen Leader and author Urrika Ahmed Zandi. Karen Leader is a writer, critic, and translator of contemporary German literature. Her translation of Zandi's Thick of It, Seagull Books 2018, won an English Pen Prize, an American Pen Heim Award, and was runner-up for the Schlegel Teak Prize 2019. Her translation of Zandi's new collection was shortlisted for the 2021 Oxford Wiedenfeld Prize. Born in former East Germany in 1979, Urrika Ahmed Zandi has written 2 books of short stories, 4 volumes of poetry, and a novel in 2020. She works with filmmakers and musicians, and her debut album with poetry band Landschaft appeared in 2018. Zandi has won many prizes, including most recently the Erich Lust Prize 2020. Welcome, Karen and Urrika.
Thank you very much indeed, Nancy, for that introduction. We're very pleased to be here and delighted to be part of this series. We're going to read from Urrika and my most recent translation. I've put the title in the chat for you. We were going to show some recent films, but they haven't worked technically. So again, I've put them in the chat for you in case you'd like to follow them up.
So hello everyone, my name is Urrika and I will start with the title poem of the book that Karen has just put in the chat, but of course I will read it in my language, which is German. Meine Freunde, versteht mich nicht falsch, wir kennen uns nicht. Ich kenne mich doch selbst nicht. Ich stehe morgens auf und weiß nicht, bin ich es, Almut, Ulrike? Wer war dieses Kind unterm Rock seiner Mutter? Ich bin die Mutter, ich bin die Tochter, ich bin der Schatten zum sich drunter verstecken. Ich bin ein Feld voller Raps, verstecke die Rehe und leuchte wie 13 Ölgemälde übereinander gelegt. Ich bin die Landschaft. Ich bin die Jägerin auf freier Flur, befinde mich auf dem Hochstand am Waldrand und zähle die Rehe im Feld. Freunde, seht ihr mein kurz geschnittenes Haar? Ich lasse es flattern im Winde. Ich bin ein Text, der zum Ende hin ausfranst. Ein Stück nur von einem Soldaten. Seine Brauen, die Waden oder sein Galgenhumor, den er schließlich verlor, als er den Schießbefehl an eine klägliche Reihe zu junger Soldaten nicht erteilte, weil in der noch kläglicheren Reihe eine Schwangere stand. Ich bin die Schwangere. Ich bin die Reihe von 13 Gewehren. Ich bin ein Kriegsverräterprozess. Ich bin kein artiges Kind, das darf nur heimlich lösen sein Haar und lassen es flattern im Wind. Ich bin ein Pfand, der spinnerte Wind, das himmlische Kind, und ich drehe mich um einen Turm mit hohem Balkone, auf dem eine Frau steht und still und heimlich ihr Haar löst. Aber nein, diese Frau bin ich nicht. Wenn ich doch, will ich nie wieder sein. Meine Freunde, versteht.
Dear friends, please don't misunderstand. We don't know each other yet. I don't even know myself. Every morning up I get and don't have a clue. Is it me, Almut, Urrika? Just who was that child under its mother's skirts? I am the mother. I am the daughter. I am the shadow for you to hide beneath. I am a field full of rapeseed, give cover to deer and shine like 13 oil paintings laid one on top of the other. I am the landscape. I am the huntress at home on the open plain, sitting in the raised hide at the forest edge, counting the deer in the field. My friends, do you see my hair cropped short? I shall let it fly loose in the wind. I am a text that begins to unravel just as it reaches an end, just a bit of a soldier. His brows, perhaps, his calves, or that gallows humor that he would lose the day he failed to give the order to shoot to a miserable line of shivering soldiers before him, because he had seen in the even more miserable line a pregnant girl. I am that girl. I am the row of 13 rifles. I am a military court-martial. I'm not a well-behaved child that only unties her hair in secret and lets it fly loose in the wind. I'm a sprite, wild-eyed wind child of the skies, and turn about a tower with a high balcony where a woman stands and secretly and silently unties her hair. But no, I'm not that woman there. And if I am, I never want to be her again. Please understand, dear friends.
A couple of years ago, I forgot my bank card and the ticket machine of the Berliner subway. It was found by a very young Afghani man who contacted me on Facebook to give it back. And that's how I came to know his whole family, his parents, his two brothers, one sister who had fled with him to Germany. And I heard about his elder sister who had been left back in Afghanistan because she was already married. They told me lots of stories about themselves, about their friends and families. And I've felt I should put them in my words. So I try to write 5 poems about them, about the stories they told me about their friends. But as it is difficult to write about a culture that is not your own without being ignorant or post-colonial, I wasn't really happy with what I had written. But when the Taliban conquered Kabul a couple of days ago, I thought that the least I should do is find a way to write about what I have come to know with respect and dignity for the owners of these life stories. So I finished the 5 poems I had already written and added a 6th one about an interpreter being left back in Afghanistan by the German forces. So, and the English translation has brilliantly and quickly been done by Karen Leader, and this is what you are about to hear now. But there are 2 Pashto words which you will need to know what it means. One is wurur, which is the Pashto word for brother, and one is babak for father.
Thank you. Yes, this is a new translation which has taken on a terrible urgency. Lamentations in 6 rounds. Round 1. The little man inside my head is Ahmed. He makes his rounds through all the wonders of my brain, running with the wariness of the hunted who are used to being hunted. My wonders leave him cold. The little man inside my head is always running, never on his way. A number in his passport even forbids him from shitting. He calls it his leave to remain. His leave to remain beats as the phantom heart in the neck of a runner who is used to pain. Round 2. The little man has a wife who sometimes needs painkillers. The little man's wife lives inside his head. Women like her never escape singly from the regions of the heart, its strange chambers of wonders, he says. She measures his maturity, ready for the 9th cot. She swallows tablets for her weak heart and for the pear tree in her head that rustles like the pear tree in the yard once did. Its leaves fill her up. She fills Ahmed up. Round and round he runs in my brain. Round 3. The little man inside my head, he had 7 sons. The first was at the bus stop when a drone attacked. The second blew himself up. The third counted to 1,000 as the teacher's throat was cut. The fourth stayed at the coast, took a job smuggling his own people. The fifth fell out of the boat. The youngest sons don't understand the little man's words anymore. They play on my aorta, Ahmed. They laugh in their sleep, the only ones left to you. Round 4. The little man inside my head, he had a daughter. He loved the way she boiled minced beef, the way she answered back. He loved the wonder of her Easter rain in Ahmed. Ahmed sold his daughter in exchange for the value of a ticket to Germany. Today she called him up. She sounded like she was sitting in his ear. The pear tree in the yard was doing fine. She hadn't been outside for weeks, she said. Oh, outside, says Ahmed to himself, there's nothing for you there. Round 5. The little man inside my head, he had a brother. He used to help the Germans finding words in his land, and for that he lost his life. You haven't lost it yet, Vurur. Ahmed types into his phone and adds a brother heart. You've made it to the safe house. You know what that means. But his brother knows how to translate lip service into Pashto. Off to the airport now is the last thing that he writes. Back in touch when I know I'm safe. Round 6. The little man inside my head reads Ovid. He reads him in the leaves of the pear tree, in his wife's head. She understands the words here better than him, but cannot write a single one. Ahmed reads Ovid in his daughter's Skype. Since her wedding, she cannot keep her hand from shaking. This Latin is all Greek to me, he says. She shouts into her phone, Berbe, I can't hear you. After the rain comes the sun, Ahmed's wife cries out in pain, with the sing-song of those who are used to labor pain. And we're going to finish with those lamentations. This is a song of consolation. To trill a song of consolation with real animals, alone and in company, and to look that old devil fear deep in his wide open eyes. Rock-a-bye, baby, little bird, everything is good. Rock-a-bye, little mouse, kiss away the blood. Rock-a-bye, lion's mouth, all his teeth are gone. Rock-a-bye, dear old horse, he doesn't have a name. And rock-a-bye, little hen, nothing will be good again. But then,
so as you have heard now, this is a poem with a incredibly long title. So this is how the title sounds in German. Tröstelied mit echten Tieren, allein und in Gesellschaft vor sich hin zu tirelieren und dabei dem alten Affen Angst tief in die aufgerissenen Augen zu schauen. So now you know German a bit, I guess. And this is the poem. Heile, heile Kätzchen, wird alles wieder gut. Heile, heile Spätzchen, ist alles voller Blut. Heile, heile Löwenmaul, dem fehlen alle Zähne. Heile, heile alter Gaul, der hat gar keine Mähne. Keine Eile, Rattenschwanz, wird alles nie wieder, doch wieder.
Thank you, Urrika and Karen. It seems so hard to shift gears with so many different sounds and performances and words and languages and themes. Our next pair of readers will be translator Heather Denyer and author Ermine Yolo. Dr. Heather Jean Denyer teaches world theaters at California State University, Fullerton. Her scholarship focuses on women and puppetry in African theater. She translates plays from French to English. Her work was included in readings for the Penn World Voices Festival and has been published on howlround.com and in PAJ. Ermine Yolo is a Cameroonian actress and director who writes, as she likes to put it. The daughter of performers, she began studying theater seriously in 2000. In 2016, she began to write to share publicly. Welcome, Ermine and Heather.
Thank you so much, Nancy. So we're going to be reading an excerpt from the end of Ermine's new play, La Femisette, or The Aisette Woman. Ermine?
Yes, hello everyone. I just want to say before reading that that play, I wrote it in 2016, 2017, and I worked on it. And I still have a few things to review or to check on before I would consider it finished. Yeah. So I'll start. Respiration. Comme pour attaquer le dernier round, le dernier carton, le dernier virage, selon l'épreuve par laquelle on affronte l'adversité. Pour cet instant précis où l'on sent et l'on sait que la victoire sera nôtre, malgré les coups que l'on a pris et rester vigilant jusqu'au bout. Grâce aux coups que l'on a pris et rester encore plus vigilant jusqu'au bout. Respiration pour mieux s'accrocher, s'ancrer et envoyer des coups nova. Hors temps 6, la mémoire cicatrisée. Je voudrais pouvoir porter à bout de bras le poids des colères et des révoltes sourdes de mes sœurs. Je voudrais savoir être la voix de leur non-dit. Je le voudrais, mais pourquoi les priver de vivre leur quête initiatique propre? Je ne saurais leur voler le moment unique de leur enracinement vital dans la terre. Je ne saurais me résoudre à leur voler les notes de leur chant stellaire de liberté retrouvée.
Breathing. As to start the final round, the last quarter, the last turn, according to the test we pass to overcome adversity. for that precise moment when we feel and we know that victory will be ours. Despite the blows you took to remain vigilant until the end, thanks to the blows you took to remain even more vigilant until the end, breathing to hold on tighter, to hang on and send nova blows. Outside of time 6, the scarred memory. I would like to be able to carry on my shoulders the weight of the rage and the voiceless revolts of my sisters. I would like to know how to be the voice of their unspoken truths. I would like that, but why deprive them of living their own quest of initiation? I cannot steal from them the unique moment of their vital rooting in the earth. I shall never be able to steal the notes of their cosmic songs of newfound freedom. Instead, I can show them the way to the source. The spirits of the older sisters have sown the directive seeds. There's nothing left but to see them and follow them. They will never cease until we all find the source of our womanly being. Let everyone give voice to all that bubbles within her. Angers, doubts, joys, loves, lacks, desires, disillusions, dreams, resentments, despondencies, pleasures, hesitations, fantasies, forgotten promises, secret promises, aspirations. Let everyone profess to and give body to all that speaks within her. Let everyone experiment with her body, with her voice, the mysteries of her personal quest of initiation and the ecstatic jubilation of self-accomplishment. And from the beatings of these millions of women's hearts, nourished at the source, a cosmic chant will be born, capable of expressing all the colors of life. I see, I hear, I smell, I glimpse the path that remains to be run, but I keep this secret. Oh no. My computer crashed. Ermine, tu veux finir à la fin?
Okay. You want me to take it in French or in English, right?
Pardon, tu reprends avec silence.
Ok. Silence. Cette fraction de seconde où pendant que tout en nous hurle la victoire, notre esprit marque un temps d'arrêt. Puis une voix, une toute petite voix dit « voilà ». Et l'on entend ce « voilà » minuscule, malgré tout le tumulte en nous. Le mur de la peur, des angoisses, du doute est tombé. L'on transpire, l'on se sent soi, l'on peut embrasser le monde. Hors temps 7, réincarnation d'un rêve incarné. Nzinga, tes passions te fortifient. N'oublie pas qui tu es, qui tu as été. Tu es reine. Tu as tenu tête à l'envahisseur par les armes et la diplomatie. Tu as régné avec intelligence et sagesse. Tu es la reine des Amazones et digne descendante de toutes les Amazones qu'a portées notre terre-mère. Tu es l'héritière de toutes les femmes baobabs de nos vies. Tes racines descendent au plus profond de la terre. Tu te dresses millénaire et fière. Tu es la gardienne de la parole primaire. Nzinga, rappelle-toi qui tu es et reprends ta place. Reprends ta place et libère la parole. Il est temps.
Silence, this fraction of a second when, while everything inside of us screams victory, our spirit marks a stop time. Then a voice, a tiny voice says, there it is. And we hear this minuscule, there it is, despite the tumult inside of us. The wall of fear, anguish, doubt has fallen. We breathe, we feel ourselves, we can embrace the world. Outside of time 7, reincarnation of an incarnated dream. Nzinga, your passions strengthen you. Don't forget who you are, who you were. You are a queen. You stood up to the invader with weapons and with diplomacy. You reigned with intelligence and wisdom. You are the Amazonian queen and proud descendant of all the Amazons carried by our Mother Earth. You are the inheritor of all the baobab women of our lives. Your roots descend to the deepest depths of the earth. You stand ancient and proud. You are the guardian of the primary word. Nzinga, Remember who you are and reclaim your place. Reclaim your place and liberate the word. It is time. They all live in me, all of them, women of ancient wisdom. Angsenamun, the young and clever strategist of Wazetz. Amadarinas, rebellious and triumphant Candace of Meroe. Makeda, the sublime and wise queen of Saba. Kimpavita, the prophetess Beatrice and Congo unifier. Kanyimpa, the great pragmatic Bijogo queen. Iria, queen mother council with great medicinal knowledge. Barampare, attentive to the wonders of Imana in nature. And me, I am the daughter of Girijoise. I am my mother's daughter. I inherited her force of spirit and her gentleness of heart. I am the queen whose arrow always finds its target. I am Zinga, the Isis woman. I remember who I am and I reclaim my place. On my skin are history written with my blood. And I release the word, the nourishing word, to build the tomorrow of all hopes. It is time. Everything began with a woman. Everything will end with a woman.
Ikwa Mwatu. Thank you. That's it for the excerpt.
Thank you, Ermine, and thank you, Heather. Our final readers will be translator Alex Zucker and author Petra Hulova. Alex Zucker's translations include novels by J.R. Pick, Petra Hulova, Joachim Topol, Magdalena Blatsova, Tomasz Zmeszka, Josef Jedlička, Heda Margolia-Skovali, Patrick Oshetnik, and Miloslava Holubova. Alex is a winner of the American Literary Translators Association's National Translation Award and 2 English Pen Writing Awards in translation. Petra Hulova's 8 novels and 3 plays, defined by her once as 3G, gender, generations, geography, have won numerous awards and been translated into 13 languages. She studied language, culture, and anthropology at universities in Prague, Ulaanbaatar, and New York, and was a Fulbright Scholar in the United States. Welcome, Alex and Petra.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Thank you, PEN America, and in particular to the PEN America Translation Committee and the organizers who put this together. So Petra is going to read first from the Czech, and then I will start in the same place and read a little bit further in English. First, by way of introduction, I'd like to say a few words about the novel that I'll be reading from, Petra Hulova's novel, The Movement, which is forthcoming from World Editions in October. This comes from a review by Dr. Helen Vassallo, director of the Translating Women Project at the University of Exeter. With echoes of The Handmaid's Tale, but putting the women in charge, the movement beckons us into a brave new world where men are institutionalized and re-educated by any means necessary to value women's inner worth. The movement challenges and unsettles, offering a candid glimpse of the underbelly of feminist utopia and raising important ethical questions about how far we might want or have to go in order to secure a truly equal world. Petra, turning it over to you.
Sorry for the mess. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Alex. I'm very grateful to Alex that he translated already my 3rd novel. And I think I have nothing else to add. I'm very grateful to World Editions that they are publishing this novel this fall. And I would say there is some kind of connection between what you will read now and what you've just heard, but that's just what came to my mind when I was listening to the last reading. Začátek každého workshopu s novými klienty provází nejistota a chvění, což je v neznámém prostředí naprosto pochopitelné. A navíc mají povinnost se soustředit. Klientům říkám, jako váš první školní den, první rande s první holkou nebo první cesta nad zvukovým letadlem provází chvění i mentální skok do neznáma nového pohledu na ženu. Ženu jako bytost. Jejíž hodnota, a tedy přitažlivost, je funkcí oné hodnoty, která neodvisí od věku a vzhledu. Měli by to samozřejmě vědět dávno a většina to ví. A chci v nich hlavně pro začátek vzbudit dobrý pocit z toho, že se chytají, ačkoliv to, co je pro absolventy instituce stejně přirozené jako dýchání, může být pro nové klienty přes předchozí ideologickou práci na nich samých tam venku, za zdmi instituce, hnutí a do třetice práce hnutí, stále ještě poměrně obtížné a nové návyky si většina z nich musí osvojit, jako jízdu na kole či plavání. A k těmto činnostem ony návyky přirovnávám i proto, že je stejně jako to plavání nebo jízdu na kole po praktickém nácviku zde v instituci nelze zapomenout. Případy recidivy Antony odvážejí zpátky, a to nejdřív na speciální oddělení zostřené péče. Antony volají nejen příbuzní, ale často sami nedoléčení muži. Zase to na mě jde. Hlásí nám do telefonu z domova a my už víme a jedeme. Sedí se v kruhu. Klienti jsou nazí, teplákovky mají složené v komínku. Já jsem ve svém obvyklém bledě modrém pytlovitém oblečení, šedivém potolikerém vyprání. A nejdřív se klienty snažím uvolnit fyzicky, třepe se nohama a rukama se krouží čajový šálek a zbývá i chvíle pro nezávazný rozhovor. Thank you.
The new clients are always tentative at the start of a workshop, which is understandable given that it's an unfamiliar environment, plus they have to concentrate. So I tell them it's like the first day of school, their first date with a girl, or their first flight on a supersonic jet, complete with the jitters and the psychological leap into the unknown that comes with seeing a woman for the first time, meaning a woman as a being whose value and therefore attractiveness doesn't depend on her age and appearance. Of course, this is something they should have known a long time ago, and most of the men do. So I want them to start by feeling good that they're catching on. Although what comes as naturally as breathing to institute graduates can still be quite difficult for new clients, in spite of whatever ideological work they've done on themselves before they come outside the Institute's walls. Thanks to the movement, and once again, the movement. Most of them have to learn these new habits the same way they learned to ride a bike or swim. And one of the reasons I make this comparison is that just like with swimming or riding a bike, they never forget their training after their stay at the Institute. The patrol vans bring back any recidivist cases, and the first place they go is the intensive care unit. It isn't only relatives who call for the pickups, but often the men themselves. I feel it coming on again, they report over the phone from home, and we're on our way. The clients sit in a circle naked, tracksuits folded in a stack, while I'm in my usual baggy pale blue outfit, gray from so many washings. I start by having them loosen up physically, shaking out their legs and doing the teacup rotation with their arms, and also leave a little time for casual conversation. Then, using precisely formulated questions, I ask the clients to express in their own words what it is that they find attractive in a woman. The majority, who only regurgitate what they've been taught, say intelligence, kindness, a sense of humor, integrity, and dependableness. A minority, touchingly sincere or total morons, say beauty and youth. And a few proactively just straight out describe the qualities that make a woman a woman. After the introduction comes phase 2, also known as rehearsal studio. Assuming they've read the materials they were given on being admitted, a thick folder with the Institute's logo, which they pore over in their dorm rooms for weeks, the clients know this is coming, but given that everyone who passes through the course is bound by an oath of silence, the actual contents of rehearsal studio come as a surprise, and I start the whole thing off, as usual, with pictures. Photographs of naked women, alluring in an old world way, projected on the wall. I rotate through them one by one at 30-second intervals, and as a roar of surprise erupts in the room, I urge the men to relax. Only in this frame of mind can things be revealed for what they truly are. And though our clients are subjected to harsh punishments for unauthorized use of pornography, in a controlled form such as this, it can serve as entry-level instructional material. Because while this group of naked men have already been through a thing or two in their first few days at the Institute, this is the moment when their re-education starts for real. Everything up to this point has been warm-up, gentlemen, I say. I can't even count how many batches of clients I've been through this with by now. And I should stress that this memoir of mine is the first time anyone has described this practice in written form, because now the Institute can be confident of its position, and the graduates of our program can speak openly about their experience with re-education, so that soon it will no longer be necessary to keep any of our practices secret. Another one of my goals in writing the memoir is to inspire those regions that haven't yet made as much progress in the ways of the New World. So then, I observe the men closely as their initial confusion on being confronted with pornographic photos quickly gives way to a string of erections, each one acting as a trigger for the next. We know mass erections have a cathartic effect, but a special team of ours is still trying to ascertain the exact mechanism. In a few minutes, nearly every man in the room is hard. The whole thing happens so fast, I barely have time to enter it in their individual charts. For the sake of completeness, we define erection as, quote, the penis in a state of readiness for application of a condom, unquote. Once the atmosphere is sufficiently relaxed, the room is in near darkness, I stimulate the men verbally, and the clients feel at home in the new setting. I make a racy joke or two about condoms, and then we get down to business. I switch the projector to a new set of photos. Now, instead of smiling girls with large breasts and shapely bottoms, a succession of older women's bodies goes parading past. No retouching or any sort of old world synthetic enhancement. No skin smoothening, hip narrowing, breast enlargement, and without even turning to look, I can tell the new loop isn't nearly as popular and the men are disappointed. I hear grumbling behind my back as I adjust the focus to make the images as sharp as possible, because the key is in the details. The old women's figures are models of ampleness compared to the ones before them. Swollen breasts, wrinkled skin, rolls of fat. And when I turn up the lights, even the clients with weak eyesight can clearly see that the hair they thought was platinum blonde is actually gray. Next come the shots of women with gray pubic hair, and I observe the clients from the front again, taking note of whose erection fades and how quickly. And as a handful of men sit with their members completely shriveled, I roar, "Shame!" at the top of my lungs, and a deathly silence falls over the room. Okay, I see a note that the sun has shifted, putting me in a really strange light. So there, sorry about that. Wasn't aware that was going to happen. Now comes phase 4. The men are in shock, and that's what we build on. They're disgusted. They feel deceived and made fools of. Instead of talking about what's going on with their bodies, they want to theorize about the Institute's methods. They try to dispute, but all their arguments are biological drivel. So after allowing them to blow off steam a while, let them speak their piece before phase 4, the section head stresses to every new instructor. I shout, "Do you eat with your hands at home?" It's a rhetorical question, so you know what their answer will be. And if I wanted, at this point, I could take advantage of my ideological superiority and launch into a monologue on civilization and how completely unnatural it is. Instead of eating naturally with our hands and naturally allowing people with disabilities to die, instead of naturally chasing down thieves with a knife and naturally leaving elderly and unproductive members of society to fend for themselves, we willingly cultivate ourselves to be humane in opposition to our natural tendencies. And we're right to be proud of that. Yes, it goes against nature, I proclaim. I have their attention more than I did a moment ago, since half the clients think I'm confirming their beliefs, while the other half are wondering what I'm up to. How are you doing for contraception, gentlemen? I ask. And my aim here is not to come back to the rubbers I joked about before, but to find out which of them has unprotected sex if their partner isn't using anything. Almost nobody ever gives an answer. Your shriveled cocks are a punch in the eye to European humanity, I roar. There was a time when I took pleasure in the commotion this usually caused. And that concludes my reading from the novel The Movement by Petra Hulova, forthcoming from World Editions in October. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, Petra, and thank you to all the readers. It looks like we have time for 1 or 2 questions. If you have a question, please put it in the chat box. I wanted to ask the panel if you can describe your process of translation with your author. How does that work, and any particular challenges or joys about that process? And here's where we jump in. We're in gallery view, so I can see everybody. And if you want to say something, just wave. And it looks like you can then unmute yourself. So Karen.
Well, I think I'd have to say I'm very lucky in that I work with a tremendously generous poet and novelist who is always ready to ask questions, but also allows her German to be stretched by the translation for it to be a real symbiosis. And so very often I'm working on work in progress. And when I come back with questions or problems, she looks again at the original. So it really is a sort of feeling of an organic process that evolves and changes.
Takako.
Yes, in my case, this is a very unusual case for me to translate Mari's poems, because she writes very, very short, uses very few words to say a lot of things. And this is actually a translation I did. Earlier, I worked with her on another set of poems from another book. So this time I did very basic translations and did Zoom together, actually Skype, and listened to her stories. That she not necessarily explaining the lines, but the stories she tells about the butterfly, for example. And she also talks about her thoughts and dreams and everything. And those are the sources for the inspiration for the translation, from very few words to another very few words. But there's something that we need to bridge, because word for word simply do not communicate anything. What do you think, Mari-chan?
一言では言えないんですけど、やっぱり例えば認証が日本語にない認証を作っていただいたことも含めて、やっぱり新しい世界をビルドしてくださったっていう感じがします。
It's difficult to say in one word, in a short sentence, but I feel that the translator built a world which has not been built in the Japanese context at this moment.
Others? Don't be shy. Heather.
I would just say that working with Ermine, as with other playwrights in Africa, it's not just a trans language; it's also transcultural, and so it's a tremendous learning experience. And it is only with the generosity and openness and willingness of playwrights like Ermine that I am able to have this opportunity to learn so much. And I love being part of the process to be able to share that with others. But it's really a gift from them to also share so much.
Maybe I can say, well, I would say thank you to Heather because we met, the first time we met, it was in Ouagadougou, that's in Burkina Faso. And we met, and then she asked me if I could send her some of my writings, my playwriting. I said, okay, let me do this. And she was like, she's interested in working in translating them, in translating them. And I was like, okay, that would be nice because if I can have my work translated in English, it would be very good because Cameroon has two official languages. That is French and English. And it would be also for me, I was like, okay, it would be also the occasion to have my work discovered or known somewhere else in the world, like in America or Europe or whatever, but outside of Africa. And I can say that Heather is she's very thoughtful, and she's also very she makes sure that she gets the right I would say the right context for what is I've written or what I've said, so that she can have the best translation possible. Because as she said, it is also transcultural because we have, either you are from Europe or Africa or Asia or America, cultures are very different, and we don't always express things the same way. We don't view things the same way. And she's kind of, she always tries to make sure that she respects the original culture from which the text is written. So I want to say thank you to Heather, but also thank you to all of you for the invitation, for this meeting, and thank you for the comments also, and the nice comments, really. And I hope this project will just go on despite the present context, that pandemic context. Yes, thank you.
And I think, Denise, you were going to say something. Thank you, Denise, too. And thank you for the words that you shared with everyone, too.
Just to go back to the question in terms of working with our authors, my author had to go, so maybe I can answer for her too. But I've only recently started this project, so it's in the very early stages. And we've had a lot of correspondence over email, but this is actually the first time that I've seen her in person, I guess. So this is a great opportunity that this panel sort of afforded us of, seeing each other live, even if on Zoom. And I have to say, I'm also from Argentina, as is my author. We're from the same generation, so culturally it's very close to me. But one of the things that really helped me understand her text better was reading her previous work. So, I came to her as a fan. I just loved her writing. I came to her as a reader, and I felt so in love with this novel that I just wanted to share it with everyone. I think that's the motivation for a lot of us as translators. So like I said, just getting to know her through the other writing and sort of recognizing the echoes of some of her earlier work in this novel, having that knowledge as a reader really helped me in sort of establishing a relationship with her, even if I was not necessarily talking to her or asking her questions. But as the project moves forward, I'm really looking forward to going back to Argentina, hopefully, meet for a coffee and ask her questions and talk about the translation as the project finds a publisher, hopefully soon.
And Alex.
Yes, so I've had the privilege of knowing Petra for quite a long time now. So as she mentioned before she began reading, this is the third novel of hers that I've translated. It's not, she's written, 8 novels now, Petra? Is it 9? And I mean, I recently just translated a sample from a young adult book she wrote. So, she's always writing. And, the thing I will say about, translating Petra and working with Petra, because I would say that I work with her, although this book, unlike some of her other books, is more about the characters and the story and the ideas than the last one I did, which was very heavily about language. 3 Plastic Rooms, where the narrator used a lot of neologisms, and it was, very much a book about, it was mainly based on the style, or I don't want to say mainly based on the style. Whereas this book has a more straightforward style in terms of the narration, and there's actual dialogue. So it was different from that point of view. And so I would say that I had relatively few questions this time, but as I said, I've known Petra for a couple of decades now and read almost all of her work. So we know each other quite well. And I think that certainly can help, as other translators here have mentioned, in working with an author. Petra, did you have something you wanted to say about working with a translator?
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Well, what I would like to say is that you often end up knowing my texts better than myself, because I think it probably happens more often with translators, that they understand better the text because they have to understand the text 100% to be able to translate it well. But it definitely is true for this my personal experience with Alex, and it's incredible that sometimes I just write as if half conscious, half unconscious, in this kind of rush, which actually comes together usually with a good writing from my experience. When it goes smoothly and quickly, it's usually a sign of good writing, for me at least. But then sometimes I just don't finish my thoughts, or it's just there is some kind of disparity in the text. So then Alex always finds these moments and finishes my thoughts till the very end and finds the flaws. And that's a great mirror to get for a writer, and I'm very grateful for it.
Thank you. Thank you for these comments. And we could go on, and there's a question about finding publishers for women who are in translation, accounting for only 30% of the books published each year. Thank you, Kate Young. I wish we could talk about these things. Looks like there was connection made here by the webinar. Here is a possible publisher, but that's a whole other webinar. We were given an hour and 15 minutes, and we're beyond that. So I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to thank our hosts again, PEN America, the PEN Translation Committee, the co-chairs, Amanda and Larissa, for urging us to put together this series of 3 readings to Piotr Florchik and Janet Tang and Sharon Dolan, who were my co-curators, working with over 80 applications for participating in these 3 readings. And I want to give a special thank you to Rachel Roseman, who is lurking behind doing all the tech and pinning everybody and getting us into a gallery position, and to Allison Markin Powell, who is still here and was going to be, she gave us that introduction and was going to be my backup if something should happen with the tech. And especially to you, the audience, for joining us today. Couldn't do it without you. And thank you for your comments and your questions and your appreciation. So thank you, audience, and thank you, readers. And hopefully we'll see you next year for Women in Translation Month in August.